So while my initial wet on wet sky and water are drying, I'm going to take this sheet of paper here. And I don't have to tape it down, it's a little bit warped already, but I'm not going to worry about that today. I'm going to practice my brush work, doing long, slightly curving cattails or grasses. I mixed up quite a bit of color and it's very, very dark. That's where it's a good idea to use something like this, which is my raw umber in a tube, because it mixes much more quickly than these dry cakes do. So I've got an entire well in my palette just kind of full of a mixture of the dark green from this palette and the raw umber from the tube. And I am practicing making brush strokes where each brush stroke is interesting and controlled. So this, I believe, is a number 7 round brush. The brush sizes vary from brand to brand and from style to style, so don't get too stuck on exactly what number you're using. I'm going to go ahead and let this brush run completely out of paint here so that I get some interesting dry brush marks. And I'm also going to make sure that some of these overlap. I've now dipped the brush in water, so I should get a lighter, a little too much water. Let me get that drop off the tip of it. I should get a lighter stroke here, a little more see-through. Not much though, I mixed up that color really dark. So practice your brush strokes and do it several times, maybe with different size brushes. And you can see in this example that I did with my student Liz, we tried different kinds of brushes. So this was the number 7 round, which is what I'm using now, number 2 and number 3 round brushes. I like the round brushes for this because the tip allows you to get that point on your cattail, and then as you press down, you get the body of the leaf that's slightly wider. Again, a little too much water there. I want to make sure that I have a dry tip so that I can get a tiny, tiny little end on each of these grasses. When I'm fairly happy with that, and you can see in the previous example that I did it several times, the more you practice this, the better it is, and it's a beautiful meditative practice. So go ahead and take your time with that. But when I've got a nice clump and I feel like I'm ready to go on to the next step, I use the same color mix, and I'm going to do a straight line as small as I can. So I've got my little finger resting on the paper, and of course smearing. I'm going to do a couple of those, usually an odd number. Odd numbers tend to balance things out in a very satisfying way, but you could certainly do an even number like this. I'd have one taller and one shorter and both of them offset to the side. And the more you practice this, the more you get a feel for that. So these are going to be my cattails. The cattails are on this stick that's a little bit more rigid than the grass part of our cattails. I'm going to come back to this line, make sure it's got a little part sticking out nice and small. Then I'm going to do the big cattail bloom itself, just like that. Now you can still see the line down the center of this one, and I think I'm okay with that. If I didn't like something about it, I can always come back and redo it very carefully here. Adding some color there, allowing the light to stay on one side as though light were hitting it from that side. And then same thing here, just pressing down, gently lifting up, keeping the tip of that brush lined up with the stalk that I painted previously. And then I'm going to come back here and just dip this darker color in where I want it. And round out this edge a little bit. So that's my cattails. practice that for a little bit while you're waiting for your wet on wet portions of the lake and the sky to dry.